Welcome to the Megacast, our live, daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Kieft, all decked out today in Pistons gear as it's draft lottery day. We'll get to that in a little bit later on. We got the news, then we'll go on to sports at the end of our headline segment. Let's begin as we always do on our local news page on civiccentertv.com with our top headlines making news all across Oakland County and around the state of Michigan. Our top story this morning comes from Jennifer Chambers at the Detroit News as the Oxford Community School District and student survivors of the November 2021 Oxford High School shooting are at odds as graduation season looms for another graduating class. Some students wish to wear orange cords as part of their graduation uniform, with the orange, of course, being the color of the gun violence prevention movement here in the United States. But Oxford High School officials are telling the students this symbol of their survival of the 2021 tragedy is a no-go, asking students not to veer from the tradition and only wear what is assigned to them by the Oxford Community School District as they cross the stage to receive their high school diplomas. And time is running out for the dispute to come to a resolution. Oxford's class of 2023 graduates this week, Thursday. However, even as the district is yet to change its tune on the orange cords, students such as Olivia Curtis, a close friend of Hannah St. Juliana, one of the students killed in the November 2021 mass shooting, says that she will wear the cord because it's an important way for her to honor her late friend. Curtis told the Detroit News, quote, First, it honors Hannah. And second, since commencement is supposed to be about things that you've accomplished, wearing the orange cord that represents surviving a school shooting just feels right. It's part of who we are, and closed quote. Parents are also showing their support for the students wishing to wear these special cords, with one parent even ordering hundreds of them, over 200 in fact, through the nonprofit Everytown for Gun Safety, and plans to give them out to students who wish to have one of those cords for free. Another student, Olivia Upham, sent the school district an email pleading to at the very least respect the students' decision to go off of the beaten path and wear these cords, pleading to the school board, quote, please allow these children to be seen, to honor their own journeys in the way that they see fit, and encourage them to wear the orange cords if they so requested them. To compare this to a political agenda is ludicrous, laughable, and shameful, and closed quote. So that's drawing a parallel here to what some may argue in this case, that these orange cords representing orange, the color of the gun violence prevention movement in the U.S., is creating a political agenda or a political speech, essentially, at a school event, a public school event. And that maybe is where there's this disconnect between the school district and the students who wish to mark this momentous occasion, unfortunately, in their educational journey, which was, of course, being involved in a school shooting, surviving a school shooting, while the district is trying to remain neutral on any political issues that may or may not be visible through this gesture by the students that wish to wear these cords. In response to calls to allow the orange cords to be worn at the class of 2023's commencement, Oxford Community School District Superintendent Vicky L. Markovich said, quote, the reason I am not approving or endorsing the orange cord is that it is being distributed by an outside organization, and is because the tradition of Oxford High School's graduation has been to keep the focus solely on the students and their accomplishment. My endorsement of other symbolic graduation wear would set a precedent that could erode that tradition and, more importantly, focus on students and their accomplishments, and closed quote. In an email, the district family's Superintendent Markovich discussed the district's official honor to student survivors of the November 2021 mass shooting in the form of a navy and blue Wildcat honor cord, the school colors of Oxford High School, stating, quote, the Wildcat honor cord will symbolize the resilience and strength that these students have had to find within themselves, forging ahead to complete their graduation requirements while healing from the trauma and after effects of the November 30th, 2021 tragedy. Those cords will be distributed to impending graduates at their commencement rehearsal. Of course, the official navy and blue Wildcat honor cord That is the official cord that I'm mentioning here that's going to be distributed to the students at their commencement rehearsal. Again, the orange cord, not endorsed by the school district, although some parents have purchased these cords and plan to provide them to students that wish to have them regardless, per this article. You can read the full article from the Detroit News, and Jennifer Chambers did a great job on this report as always. Find a link to that article on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. Additionally, making headlines today from Chandra Fleming at the Detroit Free Press on May 24th. Good news for small business owners in our local area. Fifth Third Bank will be hosting a free virtual workshop to help small businesses advance their business plans and remain competitive in a market where it's tough to attract talented workers and keep customers coming through the doors. This will be their 9th annual small business workshop in partnership with the Lee Group, and will be centered around the theme this year of navigating a business during an uncertain economy, certainly the circumstances that they are in right now. The workshops will explore maintaining stability in an unstable market, navigating the challenges of modern small business administration, and planning for the future in a post-COVID business landscape. The workshops begin at 8 a.m. on May 24th, running through about 1 p.m. In order to register, you'll want to follow a link that is on in this article. You can go and click through to on our website, on our local news page, on civiccentertv.com. If you click through this article, either by clicking the headline or by clicking in the picture that has the Fifth Third Bank logo just under the headline on our local news page, that will take you to the full article, gives you a little bit more details about who is speaking at this virtual workshop on May 24th, how you can get involved, including that link to the Eventbrite sign up so that you can get involved. And once again, this is 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. next week, Wednesday, a week from tomorrow, May 24th. It is a virtual workshop, so you can do it from the office, you can do it from home, you can do it from the office of your small business, wherever you may be. If you're on the road, traveling, trying to attract more business or build those partnerships that are so important in today's business landscape, wherever you're at, you can enjoy this workshop on May 24th through Fifth Third Bank and the Lee Group. Again, the link to the Eventbrite sign-up is in the article from the Detroit Free Press. You can find that article linked on our website on civiccentertv.com on our local news page. Also making news today on our local news page from Eric Ingalls at MLive. Next year's high school basketball season may look a little bit different, certain rules being changed in the state of Michigan, especially as the game goes down to the wire. This particular rule change may have a big impact. Changes made official this week by the National Federation of State High School Associations, otherwise known as the NFHS, have nixed the ages-old 1-and-1 rule at the free throw line for when teams exceed between 7 and 10 team fouls, sending a player to the charity stripe for at least one shot, possibly two, but only if they make the first one. It's what's known simply as the bonus, with an automatic two-shot free throw trip at the line beyond 10 team fouls in a half, otherwise known as the double bonus. But the NFHS Rules Committee approved a change to this rule in April that would eliminate the single versus the double bonus and simply send players to the free throw line for two shots every time after a certain number of fouls. That was then approved by the board of directors on Monday, making the rule official in the NFHS's realm. The MHSAA, the Michigan High School Athletics Association, does follow the NFHS's rules for their basketball games, which means that is an official rule change for the 2023-2024 season, and of course will affect both boys and girls basketball in the state of Michigan at the high school level. Now the double bonus is the only bonus, and instead of beginning between 7 and 10 fouls, the double bonus is automatic, beginning at just 5 team fouls. In addition, team fouls will not reset at the second and the fourth quarter. Team fouls will reset at the beginning of each quarter individually now, so you'll be able to be in the bonus maybe at the end of one quarter. A team gets into a little bit of foul trouble, kind of resets the playing field and allows teams to keep those games a little bit more competitive, keep things moving forward. In the case of some foul trouble in one quarter versus another, teams can make adjustments and maybe not let the lead that they may have lost or that deficit they may be in expand as they continue to get into more and more foul trouble in a particular quarter. So that's some good news for teams that had some issues with putting other teams to the line, especially late in games last season. In a statement on Monday, the NFHS's Director of Sports, Lindsay Atkinson, explained the rules change as a means of reducing injury, stating that one-on-ones led to more incidences of injury on aggressive box outs and rebounds, especially after those first free throws, some of which ended up not needing rebounding or boxing out at all because the shot, of course, goes in, triggering an automatic second shot as per the bonus rules. In addition, Atkinson said the rule change, which would reset team fouls at the beginning of each quarter, would, quote, improve game flow and allow teams to adjust their play by not carrying foul totals to quarters 2 and quarters 4. Instead, they would all change back to 0 team fouls at the beginning of each quarter. More information on that rule change, how it may affect high school basketball in the MHSAA in 2023-2024, next winter in the boys and girls basketball season, can be found in this article. Click through to it on our website, on our local news page, civiccentertv.com. Additionally, making news today from Bridge, Michigan's Janelle D. James. Some news up north at one of Michigan's favorite tourism locations. It's undergoing some desperately needed repairs following this past winter's haunting winter weather and some treacherous weather, of course, in the fall or before that, and even last fall, having a big impact on the trails at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. That's now undergone a series of repairs and cleanup. They've had their park ranger staff hard at work cleaning up debris and making repairs on paths and bridges, with the popular hiking trail finally scheduled to reopen this summer in July after over a year of being closed. While beach access near the trail was not entirely obstructed by the closure, the hiking trail is a fan favorite for exploring Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore and accessing the beachland, making this news a welcome ray of sunshine after over a year of storm damage and a wait for some that was just too long as they yearn to return to one of Michigan's most beloved natural trails. The 4-mile-long trail is both considered one of Michigan's most majestic and challenging hiking areas, so don't just prepare your camera and your camera storage, of course, to get some good pics as you go back out onto that trail this summer. It's also suggested that you bring plenty of water, food for snacks, insect repellent. I would even suggest a first aid kit just in case anything happens out there. It's, of course, a treacherous hiking trail. It's a little bit challenging, so you may get fatigued, you may slip, you may trip, you may get a little bit of little cut here and there. So it's always good to have a first aid kit as well as water. Keep yourself hydrated in these hot, humid Michigan summers. And bug repellent, you're going to be in the woods, you're going to be by water, always a hotbed for those pesky mosquitoes and other bugs during the summer season. The trail is scheduled to reopen in early July, so right around 4th of July weekend. Celebrate the independence of the trail being reopened, as well as the country's independence around the July 4th holiday. Good news from Bridge, Michigan, and up north at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. The big 4-mile trail scheduled to reopen in early July. That full article is on our website, on our local news page on civiccentertv.com. Finally, making news today from MLive sports reporter and friend of the show, Ansar Khan. Of course, that's the whole reason for this set of decorations here behind me in my apartment in western Oakland County. It's a big day for my Detroit Pistons. It's draft lottery day, one of my favorite days of the year in sports, right up there with the NBA trade deadline, with the opening of the NFL season, and of course with the beginning of the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup Finals. Those are kind of those benchmarks, those really fun sporting events each and every year. I mean, Hooper's birthday is up there too. Speaking of that, for Pistons fans, has to be on the list, the short list of some of your favorite days. But today, a big day for the Detroit Pistons, as they will find out where they will be selecting in the 2023 NBA draft. Tonight is a big night for the Pistons, or at least we hope it will be. The Pistons, boasting or scoffing at the second worst record in the NBA in 2023, are tied with two of the other three worst teams in basketball for the best odds at landing the number 1 overall pick in tonight's NBA draft lottery. That is at 8 p.m. tonight on ESPN. The Detroit Pistons, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Houston Rockets all have the same numbered ping pong ball combinations, which are determined before the draft lottery, and then they go through, similar to the everyday lottery, the Mega Millions and so on that you'll see pop up on local news stations every night of the week. Similar concept. There's a certain number of combinations that each team gets that corresponds to their odds of winning the number one overall pick. They select those in order from number one through the end of the draft lottery, and that's what they then announce in reverse order at the lottery event tonight, which will be airing just before the NBA's Western Conference Finals begin this evening between the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. So, the Pistons, the Rockets, and the Spurs all have the same odds. 14% chance of landing the number one overall pick in tonight's NBA draft, and the presumed top prize of this year's draft, a big Frenchman, 7'5" center, unicorn of a player named Victor Wembanyama, is the presumptive number one overall pick in this draft, and he is one hell of a player. You watch some of his highlights, you see him play a game of basketball, long, lanky, athletic dynamo who can use his size to dominate on the defensive side of the ball, but also is uber athletic and shoot the ball really well. Would fit excellently into this Pistons system because despite his size being 7'5", he's athletic enough to play basically every position on the floor. He's a very skilled player, high basketball IQ. The biggest question with Victor Wembanyama is his size. He's tall, he's lanky, he's skinny, he's got to put on some pounds to really have that NBA competitive body, but that's not so much a big problem for a lot of players in today's very athleticism-heavy NBA. You look at a guy like Kevin Durant, when he came into the league, same issue for him, being a very tall player, very skinny player, but athletic. And someone that many people, and that's part of the reason why he didn't go number one overall in that particular draft, going second in that draft to the Seattle Supersonics, whose team, of course, now is in Oklahoma City and is called the Oklahoma City Thunder. In this case, Victor Wembanyama, very similar build to a guy like Kevin Durant, and of course, with having a professional career ahead of him in the NBA, that's something you can work on with a player. But he's got all the skills. He's got all the raw talent to be a generational player. That's got people having eyes on this NBA draft lottery tonight in huge numbers. I would expect this to be one of the most, I'd say this is one of the most anticipated NBA draft lotteries in a long time. You think about years in the past. A couple of years ago when the Pistons got the number one overall pick and selected Cade Cunningham, that was another one they were looking at as saying, hey, this is a guy that's presumed to be the number one overall pick, pretty much a consensus number one overall pick, unless something really surprising happens or there's some big news that changes the landscape of this draft and the scouting around this draft. You would think no matter who gets the number one overall pick, whether it's the Spurs, the Rockets, another team in the lottery, ideally the Detroit Pistons, that Victor Wembanyama is going to be the number one pick in tonight's draft. A generational talent, a guy that's being looked at as possibly one of the people we'll look at decades down the line as one of the greatest players in the history of the game. Possibly. Of course, we don't know that yet. We haven't seen him play in the NBA, and things happen. Sometimes the guy you think is going to be a generational talent doesn't work out. But for the Detroit Pistons, their hopes tonight, 14% odds of getting the number one overall pick. But they could go as low as the 5th overall pick in this draft. The Pistons could fall very far from where they're currently at, the second worst record in the league. You'd say with that, the 2nd overall pick would be the high water mark, although the bottom three teams record-wise in the NBA all have the same odds, a rule that changed just a few years ago from where it was weighted pretty heavily at the top, with the number one worst team in the league having a 25% chance, the second worst team having slightly less, and then the third team slightly less than that, with teams 4 through the end of the lottery having significantly lower odds. The good news for the Pistons is the numbers suggest that one of the 3 worst teams in the league that have those same 14% odds are very likely to land the number one overall pick. An interesting statistic that was marked in this article by Ansar Khan and has been mentioned by other sports pundits around the Detroit area as we think about tonight's lottery. I'll say this very carefully. I don't want to jinx anything. Don't at me if this doesn't work out, but I'll say it very carefully. In 7 of the past 8 draft lotteries, a team with the top odds to land the number one overall pick has landed the number one overall pick. The exception being all the way back 4 years ago in 2019 when the New Orleans Pelicans jumped from having the 7th best odds at the number one overall pick to landing number one overall and selecting Zion Williamson out of Duke. So For the Pistons, I would say in this draft, you really can't go wrong in those top 3 picks. Ideally for the Pistons, obviously, get that number 1 overall pick, take Victor Wembanyama, move some guys around. You got some flexibility, a lot of young players, you got cap space. Teams are going to want some young players that maybe are movable on this team, like a Killian Hayes or an Isaiah Stewart, a James Wiseman kind of player. Teams might be interested in those guys, especially if the Pistons do end up with Wembanyama. They're going to have a lot of big men on their team, a lot of centers and power forwards, somebody likely to get moved. If Wembanyama comes in, you would expect him to be a starter on day 1 and have a big impact on this team. So that's something to look out for. But even at the 2nd and 3rd overall pick, you're expecting those top 3 players drafted to be Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, or Scoot Henderson at number 2, and at number 3. With Brendan Miller out of Alabama, having some off-the-court issues during March Madness that may affect his draft stock, but his talent is so immense that it may not affect his draft stock at all. And Scoot Henderson, who's been playing in the NBA's Development League, the G League, the Gatorade League, on their new draft preparation team that's only been around for a few years called the G League Ignite. Another really exciting player. The problem with a guy like Scoot Henderson for the Detroit Pistons would be that he's another guard. Pistons have Cade Cunningham coming back from injury next year. Jaden Ivey just had a great rookie season as a guy that came in as a shooting guard but played the point guard throughout the majority of the year because of the absence of Cade Cunningham. So getting a guy like Scoot Henderson could be interesting for the Pistons. Play a little bit more of a small ball, so to speak, but really not, because Cade Cunningham, being relatively tall for his primary position of point guard, he can play the 1, the 2, or the 3. So you bring in a guy like Scoot Henderson, maybe Cade Cunningham moves to the small forward position. Jaden Ivey's had a really good season as a point guard. You could put a guy like Scoot Henderson with his athleticism, with his ball skills, with his shooting ability. He can play the 2, and now all of a sudden you got a 3-headed monster in the backcourt. Or maybe, Pistons end up with the 2nd overall pick. There is a gap at the wing, at the small forward. Brandon Miller would be a great option as well, with his size and athleticism, would fit in well with this Detroit Pistons team. But again, those concerns are there with his off-the-court issues at Alabama, particularly late in the season, which became quite a distraction, mostly due to the media, almost entirely due to the media. I'd say probably 95% due to the media coverage during the March Madness season. But the big prize tonight, 7'5" center Victor Wembanyama. And look, I'm the kind of guy that approaches these sort of things with the strategy of denial is not just a river in Africa. I'm hopeful the Pistons can get the number 1 overall pick, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think that one of these other 2 teams that has the top odds, the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, I truly believe one of them is going to end up with the number 1 overall pick. I think the Pistons are going to have a decent outcome in this draft. I'm really hoping they don't fall down out of the top 3, certainly not as far as the number 5 overall pick, but their odds are good. Number 1 overall, according to this article, 14%. A 13.4% chance at the 2nd overall pick, a 13.4%, a 12.7% chance at the number 3 overall pick, a 12% chance at the number 4 overall pick, and a 47.9% chance of landing the number 5 overall pick. So that's their highest odds. That's the danger here, is that they could fall from presumably the number 2 overall pick all the way down to number 5, miss out on one of those 3 high-level talents, the generational guy in Victor Wembanyama, or a guy like Scoot Henderson, or Brandon Miller in those top 3. But hopefully the Pistons land that. My gut feeling is telling me for some reason the San Antonio Spurs. I feel like that is going to be what ends up happening tonight, that the Spurs will end up with the number 1 overall pick. But I'm keeping hope. I'm keeping hope alive. I'm feeling the real deal is in teal for the Detroit Pistons getting that number 1 overall pick. And hopefully we'll end up tomorrow celebrating Victor Wembanyama joining Jaden Ivey from last year's draft and our former number 1 overall pick, Cade Cunningham, from 2 years ago. on the Detroit Pistons come tomorrow morning. We'll take a break on the Megacast. All those headlines are on our website, on our local news page, on civiccentertv.com. On the other side, we'll keep our motivation going. Joining us will be Stacie, René, a motivational strategy speaker and mindset life coach, as we have beautiful weather outside. The sun is shining. It's warm. A great time to change some of those habits while the weather's motivating you, while the season's motivating you, while the socialization, getting back in order is motivating you. How can that change your mindset and help you live a more positive lifestyle? We'll get answers to those questions coming up next. Stay tuned. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
1 in 4 Michigan homes has high levels of radon, a naturally occurring radioactive gas known to cause lung cancer. It doesn't matter where you live or what type of home you have. You won't even know it's there unless you test. So don't wait. Testing is cheap and easy. And if there's a problem, it's simple to fix. Visit michigan.gov/radon to learn more.
We took action. Will you?
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
The West Bloomfield Youth Assistants will be recognizing local youth for their volunteer service, personal growth, and leadership.
Hello, nose. My nose knows is when somebody uses the bathroom. Mom, Polly didn't flush. Ooh, I smell cookies.
I smell an A+. How could my nose be running when it stays on my face?
Our noses know if those sniffles are just a cold, allergies, or COVID-19. So swab it. Test it. It's good to know.
Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Kieft. You can always find us and keep up to date with our shows and our partnering stations all across Oakland County and throughout the state of Michigan on our website on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. You'll find links to every single one of our partnering stations, TV and radio stations, community TV stations in your hometown, right here in Oakland County, and statewide programming on travel, on tourism, on history, and so much more from our co-flagship at My Michigan TV. All those links are on civiccentertv.com/Megacast, including links to where you can find our full episodes and each individual segment on demand. And of course, you can always join us live Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. as part of our 90 minutes of news coverage on Civic Center TV that begins at 9:30 in the greater West Bloomfield area with the Splash Live and runs through our show 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Joining us now on the show is Stacie René, a motivational strategy speaker and mindset life coach. As we're into the warmer seasons of the year, we've had a mix of some beautiful weather and a little bit more of that typical spring weather. But regardless, people are getting back outside. Big events have started to come back in our local area and throughout the state of Michigan. People are getting excited for the warmth and the sun of the summer season. This is a great time to change your mindset and live a more positive lifestyle. Stacie, thanks for joining us today to talk about this.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure, and always enjoy talking about your mindset and, how we can make a difference every day.
Yeah, it's a good time to do that, too, because we know that seasonal affective disorder is very much a real thing. It very much affects people of all different shapes and sizes and lifestyles, and especially in a state like Michigan, where from the fall season all the way through the early parts of spring, it's kind of a mixed bag between being some sunny days outside, but they're really cool, so you're staying inside, to being really gloomy and gray and cloudy and rainy, and that can really affect people's mood and their motivation. Then all of a sudden there's this switch. Sometime it's in late March, sometimes it's in late May. We're in the middle of that right now where it's nice and sunny outside, the weather is beautiful, people are getting back out and being social. So how big of an impact can this time of the year be on making that switch to living a more positive lifestyle?
It can really be huge. That's why they call it spring fever. I mean, spring fever is not just because, the changing season. It's because we do get more sunshine and we do get more of that vitamin D, the warm weather, and you always feel good. And during the winter months, you'd be surprised, like, what's wrong with me? I don't understand. Well, when you're living in that constant rain and you don't have that sun shining, beaming down on you, it does do something to your mindset, how you feel about things, how you're starting your day. And, I've said this before, one positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. And that is seriously so true. If you have something that triggers you, you're going to go south. So it's just a matter of, how do you want to start your day? How are you going to start it, whether the sun is out or whether it's not? I'm big into mantras. Have your mantra ready. And if you really feel kind of funky in the morning, then just have a cup of coffee, take a few moments for yourself, and think about all the things that you're grateful for. So the sunshine can help, and it does psychologically do something for you, but you are in control of your mindset. So you have to start it off right. How do you want to start your day? Have a great mantra. So that's kind of my tips for no matter what season it is or what you're, going to be going through, even if it's the winter. How are you going to feel about it?
And the framing of how you approach your day is also so important. That's a big part of that transition from, the pitfalls of living a life of, a little bit less positivity or finding yourself falling into those habits that happen. It's natural. It's part of life, where you're feeling less motivated or you're feeling a little bit down on yourself. The way you frame things is so important. There's a big difference between, I'll take an example from my life, saying, I got so much work to do today. I've got 3 guest slots open the rest of this week on the Megacast that haven't been filled yet. I'm so stressed out about that, as opposed to going about it saying, hey, look, all I got to do today is I got to get ready for the show this morning. I got to book just tomorrow. I'm not going to think about the rest of the week. I just got to book that one slot that's open tomorrow. And then beyond that, it's a beautiful day outside. I can take a step outside while I wait for some of those emails to come back in, and all of a sudden it goes from feeling like a gloomy and stressful day to feeling like something that's kind of light work. I can do that. Framing is so important.
You made my day. I love that, because that just fills your soul of happiness. And just hearing how you started that conversation off, or let me give you an example, and you could just hear the tone from an outsider's perspective. So if I'm feeling and hearing what you just transitioned your mindset to, I can darn well tell you, anyone that you come in contact with is going to feel that same thing. If you're giving off that energy, Tyler, and what you just described is everybody's life, everybody's morning, or not like everybody, but the majority of people. And I felt the shift in even you talking about it. And it was almost like a relief on my part to hear, yeah, you've got this. It's going to be okay. And, you do have some slots to fill, and anyone that cancels or doesn't show up, you know what? It was not their time to shine. It was not their time to do your interview. And maybe they need to go on another day, because who knows what would have happened. So look at it as a blessing in disguise that, right, they weren't on today. It was tough for them to get there, and you just move on. And your description of that is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate
Tyler,
that. We're joined by Stacie, René, Motivational.
Yeah.
Please go.
So a lot of things too is the framing of the words. You know how many people wish that they could go get their daughters or their sons or somebody from school, and maybe they had issues getting pregnant. So if you're looking at, I have to get my children from school, or I have to get a job, or I have to go to work every day, Do you know how many people in your shoes would love to go to a job, pick up their kids, go to the grocery store? There's a lot of people. And the industry that I'm in, I can tell you right now, I have seen it all. I have listened to the heartaches and the souls crying because they wish that they could just get up out of bed, but they can't, or they wish that they could do so many things that we take for granted. And I don't think that anyone has that unless they get a slap in the face of reality. And so change your verbiage to, hey, I get to pick up my kids from school today. I get to go to a job. I'm loving it. I am loving that I get to do all these things, because you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. You are making that decision. So make the verbiage positive. It will change your thinking for the rest of your day. And I will guarantee whatever you are doing, you will be more successful, and you will have more, as I like to say, ROI, return on investment, of whatever you put your mindset to for that day, for that goal, and for the outcome of the future. So being in the present, being appreciative, and making a future better for yourself and everybody around you. If that makes sense.
You can get in contact with Stacie and find more information and motivational strategies by visiting StacieRené.com. You can also find her on various social media. You'll find her on Facebook at Stacie René, on Twitter at Mrs. Michigan, and on Instagram at StacieRené_official. All of that is linked on her website, StacieRené.com. As we go back to kind of the weather theme here with motivation and this time of the year, spring is a time of change in nature, and we are a part of nature ourselves. And so embracing change or framing, again, it goes back to framing changes in your life, especially this time of the year. It can be tough for a lot of people to go through those changes. I know, for example, that it can be. I'm going through one right now. A couple weeks ago, I was in the hospital, and because of medical reasons, I'm not going to be able to drive for a while under state law until I'm cleared by my doctors to do so safely. And so it's causing a lot of different changes in my life. I'm doing the show from home. I'm working from home now. I'm not getting out as freely as I would before. If I need to go somewhere, I need to figure out a way to get from point A to point Z. And you can look at that as a point of stress, or you can look at it from other angles too and decide how it can be a positive in your life. For me, I look at it from the perspective of I needed to be a more social person. I do tend to close myself off at certain times and not be as social, and not force myself to maintain those lines of communication, whether it's with friends or with family. This situation's forcing me to do that, because otherwise I'm stuck in here all day. And as lovely as the ambiance is here on this NBA draft lottery day, I got to get out and see some other people, because look, you people at home spend an hour with me a day. I spend 24 hours a day with myself. I need someone else there. So change is inevitable, but it's also realistically going to be tough for a lot of people in some situations. So how do you approach that, Stacie, from a motivational standpoint? Because for some people, those are going to be small changes that happen here and there. And for others, this time of the year comes with big changes too, especially for those parents as their kids are finishing up school and maybe going off into college or the career path.
Right. And there's a couple things in what you said that I can, elaborate on. Is first, I hope that what you went through, that you are healing, and I'm really proud that you are just working from home and doing what you need to do to make it all work. In a couple of scenarios with that situation, you also find out who your true friends are. You find out who people are the truth when you are in situations like this. So we are faced with unfortunate circumstances, sometimes for a reason, as much as we don't want to hear that, or, oh, it could just be a fluke. Well, no, sometimes we need that weeding out process, and it sheds a lot of turbulence that you don't need in your life. And you also find out who is there for you and who is not. But, the outlook of what you're going through, a lot of other people go through that same thing. And we also teach ourselves that reaching out and asking for help, and asking that it's okay. People love and enjoy, and it makes them feel good knowing that they can help you when you really need it. So don't shut them off from that. And don't, if they offer to do something, say, no, I'm fine. You know what? don't do that to them, because they want to help. They want to be a resource to you. And it also fills your soul as much as theirs. And as far as, if you are at home for quite a while and maybe you can't get out and you are feeling secluded, there is no shame in just sending someone a text and saying, hey, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you, and, hope you're doing well. And, sometimes that text out of the blue also is a great conversational starter, and letting them know that you're thinking about them. And so that also helps you, because you're feeling like, it makes you feel like you're still being able to do some socializing or picking the phone up and calling someone out of the blue. I know I often give challenges to people that once a day for 30 days, pick someone new and send a text out to them. And I recently did that. And little did I know, that day before, one of my old roommates, her mom ended up in the ER, and she's like, you have no idea how much I needed that text. And because of that, I am a support system for her. She needed the support and didn't even think about asking, but I gave it to her. And I've sent her text messages. How are you? What can I do? I've taken some food up to her. And it kind of also rekindled the friendship that we kind of dwindled off getting older. And so there's so many doors and so many avenues. And to also keep yourself going and motivated is, go outside, take your shoes off, stand on the ground, and just observe and enjoy nature. There's something magical and makes you feel good by just getting outside and taking your shoes off and leaving your phone. Do that for 10, 15 minutes. It's something called grounding, and you will feel better. So those are a couple of tips. And if you can't get outside, if it's rainy, they do have those sun lamps. There is something to be said about taking that sun lamp that you just plug in. It gives off the effects of the sun, and sitting in front of that with a cup of coffee in the morning for 10 minutes. That is also your time. It's also your time to think about all the accomplishments that you want to make. Set 3 goals for the day. Say to yourself 3 things that you're grateful for. So there are ways around this spring fever and getting yourself out of a funk, and especially for those kids who are going into the summer months because they're not going to be around their friends all the time. Plan activities. Again, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a challenge, but we are a village of moms, of dads, of stepmoms, stepdads, whatever you want to call it. We are here as a village to help each other. Plan things for your kids, because if you think that they want to just sit home and do nothing, even though they say it might be fun for the first week or two, but they need that socialization. They need to get out. Get them into once a week sports. At least they're getting out once a week. If you can get them into something else, have maybe your house be a house that you can work from home, if that's even possible for you, on a Wednesday, and maybe have their friends over on a Wednesday. I mean, there's endless ideas that we really truly can do, but don't ever disconnect it, because it's really hard getting back into that. That was a lot right there.
Yeah, but it's good point. It's a good point too, because so much of your own motivation can be found in those relationships you have with other people. Like you said, when you had reached out to this friend of yours, you maybe lost communication, or they'd been lost in time, as tends to happen. Things happen, life happens, and relationships drift. But you happen to reach out, and it just happened to be the right time, the right circumstance, where they needed somebody in their support system that maybe wasn't there at that time. And that also reflects on whatever changes somebody else may be going through in their life, or challenges they're facing day to day. Just having that escape of someone that you know, somebody that you trust, somebody that you appreciate in your life, can really have a big impact on changing your mindset, your worldview in that moment. And so maintaining that socialization, especially this time of the year where people are more likely to be motivated to go out and to spend time with other people, to get outside and make some of those memories. This is a really important time of the year to make that effort, especially if it's something that you're struggling with or you have been struggling with, making that effort to get out and about, meet some new people, and reconnect with people that have been in your life before.
That is so true. So true. And, and if financial is a concern of yours, you can go outside. Going outside to a park is free. It's complimentary. There are so many things. I know the West Bloomfield Parks and Recs, they have, concerts in the park. Go to those things. That doesn't really cost anything. So there are resources out there. It's just a matter of, tapping into some events and seeing what's out there. But again, make it something fun. Like maybe your family has family night once a week and it gets you out somewhere and go walk around, just do something different. It's just endless. Play a game. It could be a silly game and make things up. When you're in the car, I know that the couple times with my daughter and I, we're just having a long drive, and all of a sudden I'll go like this to her. I'm like, hey, I spy a mailbox. And she'll be like, what's happening? And it's just about making fun. And then I'll be like, hey, I spy a red car. So we just have fun with it. And that doesn't cost any money. And it turns out to be a lot of laughs. And I'm like, no, we already said that. And it's just about making humor. And here's the thing is we all could use a little pick-me-up. We all don't know what's really going on behind closed doors. Who needs that little extra ray of sunshine or that little, like I said, text message of, hey, how are you? Or I'm just thinking of you with a funny emoji. And just that personal text goes a very long way, even if you have not talked to them in a year, 2 years. Sometimes we need that door. And if you all of a sudden have someone's name pop in your head, that is your gateway to just send a message. There is a reason why that name popped in your head. So take initiative. Also, the best way to get yourself out of a funkiness is to just make someone else happy, because it does shine through and it does come through on your own side of knowing that you made a difference. And when they do say fake it till you make it, some people like that term, some people don't, but I'm a fan of it because if you're going to sit there and think negative all day, then you're going to get more negative. If you're going to be like, you know what, I may feel like crap, but I'm like, it's a great day, I'm happy, let's just do this. It does internalize and it does start to shift your thoughts and put yourself in a different place. So, in the mornings, find a mantra. I was up at 5 this morning and I had to be at a location at 6:15 this morning. And as I was leaving the building, I'm like, you know what? I just want to tell you all, you're all asses. And they look at me and I'm like, you were awesome, successful, and smart. And they all bursted out laughing. They're like, this is the way to start a day. And, so just making the change in someone's mind at, so early in the morning, it made me change my mood, whether I had to get up so early or not. And they have laughed. They're like, could you come in every morning? And I said, no, this is way too early, but you can have it. But it did make me feel extremely good. And for the rest of the day, they're going to be calling everybody an ASS. And then one decided to say, she's like, well, I'm sexy too. So she decided to put an extra S and say air. So we just had a fun morning and really enjoyed the early rise of what our success was going to be for the day. Hopefully that little tidbit will help you.
Yeah, hopefully it will help people with that motivation, that change to a little bit more positive. Can happen one step at a time and still have a very big impact. Stacie, thank you so much for your advice.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure. And don't forget, your mindset is what you want to be, who you want to be, and what you want in the next future. You've got this. Take control.
More motivation and advice on StacieRené.com. That's StacieRené.com. We'll take a break on the Megacast. On the other side, we'll talk to one of over 300 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform. Stay tuned. This is the Megacast.
There are many different kinds of noses. Our noses can sniff out all kinds of things. Good things and bad things. Your nose knows if those sniffles are just a cold, allergies, or COVID-19. So swab it. Test it. It's good to know.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live daily TV, radio, and streaming show talking about all things Oakland County and the state of Michigan. I'm your host, Tyler Kieft. You can keep up to date with us on civiccentertv.com/Megacast. Find more information on all of our partnering stations throughout Oakland County and across the state of Michigan, and find our full shows and each individual segment on demand. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Joining us now on the program is one of over 300 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform. Diane Pears is the founder and the CEO of Home of Serenity and joins us now on the program. Diane, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on to talk about your organization because it does such important work that maybe people are not thinking about as much in the day-to-day when they're thinking about even the issue of parenthood in their community. So tell us about Home of Serenity and your organization, some of the services it provides in our communities.
So, Home of Serenity is a new organization. We are providing housing, residential care services, and a total wraparound services for homeless youth and their children. And we also are developing a maternal health and infant health program so that mothers can have a happy pregnancy and successful delivery.
And this provides a number of different resources to these families, both before the birth occurs and even after birth occurs, to help the mother, to help these kids as well, especially if they're in a situation where they are in need of temporary or permanent shelter. So what are some of those resources that your organization provides to help fill these gaps in the lives of these parents and these children?
So we provide items needed in order to bring their newborns into the world so they can have the stability they need to actually take care of their infants. We also provide transportation services to maternal appointments, also infant appointments as well. During the process, and especially at the residence, we provide of course, a safe environment, food services. We assist them in their educational needs and also with job and training skills so they can be self-sufficient when leaving the program.
You can support Home of Serenity's programs and learn more about the organization in a couple of places. ShareDetroit.org. If you go there, find a nonprofit section right on their homepage, middle of the page on the left side. You'll just simply search Home of Serenity and find more information on the organization. You can also go directly to their website at homeofserenity.org. And for more resources, 832-996-0374. That is 1-832-996-0374, or send an email to info@thehomeofserenity.org. Diane Pears, the founder and CEO of the Home of Serenity, joins us on today's edition of the Megacast. And so for those that are in need of some of these services, how can they best go about getting in contact with your organization? Or better yet, how do they get in contact with your organization and get access to these resources? Are they mostly finding you, or is your organization finding them?
It's a little bit of both. So we go out to a lot of community events and we pass out flyers and information. So from those flyers, a lot of times people hold on to them, and then we get a lot of contacts. And so yeah, that's basically how we've been finding each other. But also they can reach me at me personally at dpairs@thehomeofserenity.org. Also, the information for the organization, the email is info@thehomeofserenity.org. We're also on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. You can Google us and find us there. So yeah, those are the ways to reach us, besides the telephone number at 832-996-0374.
You can find more information on the Home of Serenity's website by visiting thehomeofserenity.org. You can also go to sharedetroit.org to find more information as well. And there's so much that goes into supporting a family, supporting even just a singular child as a parent, especially if you're struggling with shelter. So for those that may not be familiar with this issue and the wide variety of different ways it affects families, what is something you wish people knew about the about the experience of parents and children in disadvantaged or homeless situations?
So I wish people would have like a more open mind as far as how these young people get into these situations. A lot of times people tell me that, hey, they knew what they were doing by getting pregnant, and now they're in this situation. But that is not always the case. Some people are living and like a horror film, and their pregnancy was not by choice. And so just because their situation is that way today doesn't mean it will be that way tomorrow. So with the help, love, understanding, and support, their lives can change from desperation to great success.
You can provide some of that support yourself by visiting thehomeofserenity.org. Sponsor a family, sponsor a project, simply give a donation that includes corporate support as well. Thehomeofserenity.org/donate, the place to go for that. Diane, thank you so much for joining us and telling us more about the great work that your organization is doing in our communities.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
So glad to have you on. ShareDetroit.org is the website for over 300 charities and nonprofits supported on their platform all throughout the Metro Detroit area. You can find more information on the Home of Serenity at thehomeofserenity.org or call them for more information about resources. 1-832-996-0374. 1-832-996-0374. That is going to do it for today's edition of the Megacast. Big thank you to Stacie, René, and Diane Pears for joining us today, as well as our dedicated crew, Jared Clark at the studio of My Michigan TV, and Calvin Brown, our director at Master Control at Civic Center TV today. I'm Tyler Kieft. Until next time, take care of each other, go Pistons, and we'll see you next time.